The PlayStation 5 Pro is not the most attractive console. It's at least $700, offers only a marginal upgrade over the base PS5, is digital only, had a horrible marketing campaign, and the list goes on. Because of all this, it's not surprising to see the sales results so far. Though no specific sales numbers have been reported, we do know that the PS5 Pro is trailing behind the PS4 Pro in sales in the same amount of time. Additionally, as of March, PlayStation 5 hardware spending was down 38% year-on-year. And not to mention, gamers spent 25% less on games year over year as well. Because of all this, it's not really a stretch to assume the PS5 Pro has not been a success. So, when looking at the current situation with the PS5 Pro, I can't help but be confused. Anyone could have seen this coming and should have seen this coming. Even Sony should have expected the poor reception that the Pro was going to receive. Obviously, Sony could be just that dumb and out of touch, which, is likely the case, but I'm still suspicious. What if Sony knew exactly what they were doing and expected this? What if the PS5 Pro was never even supposed to be a moderate success? What if Sony's reason for releasing the PS5 Pro was for an entirely different purpose? I believe Sony launched the PS5 Pro almost solely to test out the new technology in it. First and foremost, by releasing the Pro, it allows Sony to trial run the first version of PSSR, their upscaling technology that will be in the PS6. Sony can see how it performs and what the shortcomings are by allowing developers to actually utilize it. At the same time, it gives developers and studios exposure to this specific upscaling technology. Right now, there are games that use PSSR to achieve incredible results, while other games don't see much benefit from it, and sometimes even perform worse. By allowing developers to start figuring out PSSR now, the devs will be very familiar with it by the time the PlayStation 6 releases. When there are problems with games using PSSR, there will be a large amount of data that can point to the reasons why. For example, perhaps the developers are implementing it wrong, or PSSR is not working correctly in a certain game engine. This sort of trial run and its data seems to already be quite helpful to Sony, as a recent article stated that an update to PSSR is coming next year, which should improve the overall technology. Further, there's other lessons Sony can learn about their tech. Similar to PSSR, they can see how the ray tracing technology is actually performing and how developers are using it. They could look at the CPU, as that often bottlenecks the Pro's performance since it's the same as the base PS5's. Though this bottleneck was likely obvious to Sony before release, this will still allow them to see how the CPU, in conjunction with the other tech, is being used by developers. On another note, perhaps the much larger GPU was supposed to do more of the heavy lifting, but is not since the CPU is bottlenecking the machine. But, regardless of the actual intent, Sony is still getting all this useful data for their next generation console. And of course, there are other reasons to release a Pro as well. There's no other competitor in the market with a Pro console, and Sony knew the first adopters would spend money on the console no matter what. This leads into the second most important reason Sony released the Pro. They get invaluable pricing data from it. Sony definitely priced the Pro high on purpose. If the Pro was really for research purposes, then they would have needed to make sure they did not lose money on each unit sold. It is reported that consoles are actually often sold at a loss in order to get gamers into that ecosystem to spend additional money. So, with the PS5 Pro, they likely sold it at such a high premium and without a disk drive in order to gain a good profit on each one sold, especially if they were not expecting huge sales numbers. Which again, don't know why you would. Anyway, the tech inside the Pro helps support this idea, because much of the internals of the console, like the CPU, remain the exact same as the base console. This would all be incredibly helpful for bringing the manufacturing costs down and to contribute to the overall cost savings. Also, due to economic factors and the inevitable price increase, the PlayStation 6 will cost more than the PlayStation 5 at launch. Now at launch, the PS5 cost $400 or $500, depending on the model you got. So, with all this in mind, the PlayStation 6 costing anywhere from $500 to $600 seems likely. All of this is to say, if for some reason Sony was originally contemplating a higher price for PlayStation 6, the PS5 Pro is good evidence for why they should not launch a console at that higher price point, especially if Sony wants great sales. But let's also be real. Sony's arrogance and foolishness with the PS5 Pro's marketing had nothing to do with anything else other than their stupidity. That they chose not to have any new game announcement using the Pro was also mind-boggling. So, even though I think it's likely the Pro was launched for all the reasons I stated about technology, price, and the PlayStation 6, there's always a good chance I am wrong. It could always be that Sony is really just that dumb. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.